had a mixed weekend of results, depending on the sport we're gonna commentate on. And
Sure.
but at the very least, what it has done it for us usually is it's given us the usual range of emotions. You know, whether it be the euphoria of winning, in the case of Arsenal, or the ignominy of defeat, as in the case of West Indies. So we've got a pretty packed afternoon. Welcome, Gawin. How are things going on your side?
Going pretty well. I really can't say, and you're right. It's a mixed bag of feelings. Started from Thursday, yeah, from the fourth. Started from Thursday. Thursday morning up until possibly today.
Yeah,
When Arsenal winning. But yeah, Thursday morning and yesterday, I didn't really have any interest in looking to see the results from yesterday because it didn't really matter. After Thursday, it just didn't matter.
I agree with you. I
Yeah,
agree with you.
it didn't matter.
It, and I guess we're going to discuss it some more, but I'll be honest with you. I personally did not expect. I wanted a repeat, but I did not expect a repeat.
I,
And uh, yeah, but yeah, I'll break down what I mean by that
yeah,
later on as we get into it. But yeah, it's been a mixed weekend, you know. So I am actually happy for persons like yourself, West Ham fans. Today are happy. That was a amazing result they pulled off against Liverpool.
true.
They
Playing
leapfrogged
with the
them
best
to third
strikers.
position.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, playing against one of the best strikers and one of the best defense in the league. They really did well. I mean, they really held their own and did well. I didn't expect that. In all honesty, I didn't expect that result. And I don't even think most of West Ham fans expected that result.
well, maybe not a 3-2 result, but I knew West Ham was going to give them a run for their money.
Mhm.
I had been watching West Ham over the past few weeks, and their improvements have been very significant, especially in the Premier League. And I've been watching them out of the corner of my eye, and they have not yet, unlike Everton, who started hot and cooled off, unlike Tottenham, who started hot. And initially, I had Tottenham as one of my dark horses. They
Yeah.
completely cooled off. Um, West Ham, they have continued to pound it out with the top six, as it
Mhm.
were. I will go back through and see what their stats are like against the traditional top 16 so far for the season. But West Ham has been no mean pushover by any means. Their play has been expansive. Their defense has been sound, and they've been thugging it out with the big boys this season so far. And kudos to them on a well-deserved victory this afternoon.
True. True. And not only that, though, but as you say, if you look at who started off hot, Tottenham and the rest, but they really fizzled out. But West Ham really hasn't. They've been in that that 4, 5, 6 position throughout the entire 11 games I think they played so far throughout the entire 11 games.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it almost seemed like as if they belong there because like the wins aren't like freak wins. It's not like, oh well, they just happened to win a game. It's not like freak wins.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
like properly playing. David Moyes have them playing proper football, defending and stuff like that. So they're really doing well. But today's game, because of how well Liverpool has been playing, I think
Yes.
that's the reason why I wasn't really expecting that result. But they really held their own, man, and the fans have a lot to give them to be happy about.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. They went home happy. You're in the top four, you know. You're a West
Yeah,
Ham fan. You're in the top four. You're in the Europa League and you're in the top four. You know,
exactly,
and you're
exactly.
playing. You're playing using a manager that Manchester United. Well, I'm not even going to say that name right now.
A
That
lot of
team
person
discarded
a lot of
a
person
few.
discarded
You
because
know.
remember Moyes coached, even before he coached Manchester,
West
I think
Ham.
he coached Everton,
Yeah.
and he's coached a lot of teams, and it's kind of mixed because to me he hasn't okay he really hasn't been like okay a coach level like a superstar team, you know, so it's not like just
Right.
that he's coaching superstars all the time, but he has coached teams and have them in position like Everton and stuff like that prior in the past. That being, if they had the right players, he probably would have been coaching like top three teams all the time. You know, had they had
Agreed.
the right
Agreed.
players. You know,
Agreed.
so
I think his,
mm,
I think they cut the cord on his experiment with Manchester United too early. I think
mm,
they only gave it was like 9 months into
yeah,
his tenure, you know,
yeah,
and they cut the cord and say just set him off, you know. Could
yeah,
you
just
imagine now
easy like
what?
that.
Yeah, yeah, and now
I,
they're sticking it out with this one here.
yeah, but I think what happened to is because of what they did, right? And it's the same thing when Arsenal when they got rid of the other guy, the previous coach. It's the same thing. It's like you cut the card early, and now you're in almost the same predicament with the same players. So
Yeah,
you know, well, it could have been the coach. So now you'll be like, you know what? Let us try to hold on. But sometimes if you could hold on too long and cause issues, you know, as it is now with United. You know, it's like now they're in almost between a rock and a hard place, whereby they probably should have tried and get Conte, which they didn't. You know, I mean, even me, I wanted Conte for Arsenal when you know when we were doing so well earlier in the
I,
year.
I get the
And
impression that they do not want a non-British coach. That's all I
oh,
will say on the matter.
oh,
I get the
wow.
impression that they do not
Uh-huh,
want a British coach. That based on, I guess, Sir Alex Ferguson's time in charge,
uh-huh,
and I guess previous successful managers, Bobby Charlton or otherwise, they were of particular nationality. You
uh-huh.
know, they were part of a particular one of the empires. So I get the impression because if you notice the results that this one is being allowed to have, only
Uh-huh.
because he's a legend, was not tolerated for any of the previous three, for that matter. Even though
Okay.
the first one, Moyes, was is of British,
Uh-huh.
origin, decent. I think what happened is that Sir Alex Ferguson made the recommendation, but he himself was not necessarily ready to make that jump, especially in terms of dealing with the superstar players, like you said. And I think he fell out with a number of superstar players trying to implement his way of doing things.
Mm.
And once he lost the dressing room, then your time was cut short. When I think he should have been allowed time to rebuild the team in his image,
Yeah.
he was sent off. Anyways, as I said, I would not spend no time on him at all, and we've already spent 2 minutes on him. So we could start with the weekend's matches in the EPL, and then we will go to the our joint discussion about West Indies and the debacle thing. So the
Okay.
first match was on Friday. Aston Villa succumbed 1-0 to Southampton. And we saw the results of that today. It was today Dean Smith was relieved of his duties. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just before the Tottenham Everton game kicked off. Dean Smith was relieved of his duties. Long-standing coach with Aston Villa. He coached them for 4 years or so, brought them back up from League One. Sorry, from uh, not Premier League, the other one. League is League One, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Championship.
Championship,
Yeah.
championship, correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, he brought them up from the championship, and a lot, and they played very, very good football in that first year with Jack Grealish. They sold Jack this year and bought some pretty good players, including the young Jamaican guy, Bailey. So
Yeah.
the expectations were raised. They were also able to hold off relegation. This is now 2 seasons in a row. But unfortunately, the last run of results that he got, 5 losses in total, have resulted in him being given the sack today.
But
So,
you realize it's funny because you have like okay, like we would have been in similar situation whereby you have some persons who just could lose 3 games, 4 games, get sacked. Some persons who could bring up a team from relegation, keep them out of relegation, try their best with whatever players they have to work with, get sacked. And then you could have some persons who are almost like unsackable, you know? So so there's like no because look at who got sacked yesterday after winning. Somebody got sacked after winning, you know?
Fark,
Yeah.
Norwich
And he
City.
won. Yeah. And they won the game. And right after they won the game, he got sacked. So there's like no measuring. Well, I guess he might have known, but there's really no measuring stick per se. You know, they just I guess it just depends on the owners. They just decide, okay, let's take the team into a different, different direction, and you will be fitting for this direction. So we'll just get rid of you and move on.
Yeah, Fark's one is a little bit disappointing as well too because he brought as Norwich as well up from the championship.
Yes.
So I guess you have to give the man credit where credit is due. I don't get the impression also that Norwich has the strongest team on paper. So you're looking at them now, they are probably bound for the championship again, more likely than not.
Let me take a look.
And
Because what happened is, yeah, because I think Norwich came up with Watford in what, and they were showing clips of the game. Well, I was looking at it on YouTube or Facebook, what they call the best game in English league history. When they had then it came, Norwich missed the penalty. Fabianski was the keeper, pushed the ball forward, then he came, scored. They went to thing. Both of them actually came up. And then you have, you have Norwich now in 20th place and Watford is 7th, but at least Watford just lost 1-0. And but Norwich, but Norwich, they won. Well, both of them basically have the same thing. Last, one, last, and it's, So it's funny, but
my only thought on it is maybe they say before they get back down into the championship, maybe they want to bring on whoever that new manager is to get a proper taste of the Premier League. There's no real loss unless, of course, you don't. If it is you don't plan to continue with Fark, then cut him now and bring in somebody else who will be there for relegation and for the battle to come back up, right? And I'm certain there'll be no shortage of persons who will be willing to take that type of responsibility.
But no, I'm looking at the table. But how would you categorize what Newcastle owners did when they bought over the new owners for Newcastle when they bought over the team? Because now they're in 19th place, got a new coach, but they could be in the same predicament whereby they got a new coach to try to get them out of relegation and maybe somewhere sitting comfortable in the middle of the bottom half of the league. And versus, suppose now getting a new coach, spending so much money, because they'll have the money, no doubt, next season, spending so much money on players, but then you're in the championship next season.
Yeah. And I believe that their decision to sack Bruce will have cost them the opportunity to stay up in the Premier League this season. Because even if they were to get the best of transfers in now, you still have to almost have a preseason of sorts with the players at your disposal, the new players coming in or whatever the case is. New manager now has to work this team into his shape. Then and that alongside now trying to pick up points wherever you can because you are in a relegation zone. And remember, they used to say that the average was like 40 points, 30 something, 40 points. If you want to ensure you don't get relegated, you need to aim for them kind of numbers. They are far off from that. And how do you plot? How do you plot for the remainder of the season, especially with the top 10 teams playing as well as they are right now? Let's see. How do you plot getting picking up points here or there? So I think I think it was a major faux pas because they're gonna go down. They're gonna go down. They're probably gonna have a very good championship season and come back up right away. But their sacking of Steve Bruce would actually, in my opinion, could very well cause them to be relegated alongside Norwich's season.
Yeah, because when you look at Steve Bruce, so he's a quote-unquote Premier League manager. I mean, he's coached them all, so he's a Premier League manager, so he understands that. And I'm sure that he might have been working at saying, okay, as you say, you have certain things you can say, okay, you might get 3 points from this team, 1 point from this team, and then you start to add up your points to see how best you could reach 40.
Yes. And you already know the players there. So anybody you're bringing in, you used to fit them into your system now to help enhance a system that the players are currently playing, as opposed now to starting it all afresh and having to teach everybody now new tricks at this late stage. I don't know, but you'll see. They drew 1-1 with Brighton. It did not help, but it did not hurt their chances either of staving off relegation. Crystal Palace beginning to come into their own. All your old midfielder Patrick Vieira, doing some good work over there. I was watching some clips of their last few games where they've been on a pretty good run, and they're really playing different to what Crystal Palace is. They're trying to. There's more ball possession. There's a lot more defensive solidity. And the counter-attacks, the attacks are swift sometimes, precise. So Vera doing a pretty good job with those guys, but kudos to them, 2-0 over Wolves yesterday.
Yeah. And then we have Brighton sitting as the usual lead. I don't know if it's because of looking at them from championship, and then they came up last year, and it seemed this seemed to be a club where I'm hoping they don't go down, but it seemed to be a club whereby if they find their footing, they could be a pretty good club, If they find their footing, it could be a pretty good club.
I think they'll be all right.
The people.
I think they'll be all right.
Yeah.
You mean Burnley and the 1-1 with Chelsea was a big result as well. Chelsea dropped 2 points. I thought Burnley played really well. Burnley did not run from them by any means. They gave them as good as they got, and Chelsea were not their usual clinical best. They had chances, they just didn't put them away. We just mentioned Norwich 2-1 win over Brentford, their fellow relegation strugglers. Well, Brentford, which is the team that beat Arsenal early in the season? Brentford, right? The Bees.
Brentford, yep.
Right.
No, we lost against Leeds, too. Yeah.
Okay. And then the early game on Saturday was Man City's schooling, Pep Guardiola's schooling of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Very comfortable lead, 2-0 win.
Is it, but okay, would you say, because this is something that I'm trying to figure out, is it that Pep has always been fortunate enough, like very much like Jose Mourinho? Is it that he has always been fortunate enough to just being hired to coach good teams, or is it that he's really That's not someone, if you realize somebody posted something today and he was talking about the top 10 coaches in history. It seemed like it was in history. And his name was in there. But I'm like, is it? For most names on that I saw on the list anyway, they were more like English Premier League coaches than other league coaches. But is it that he's really that much of a good coach, a good tactician, or is it just that he's just been blessed with having to coach some really good teams? Because it's hard to see him, it's hard to even think of Pep even coaching anybody else but the Man City and Barcelona and stuff like that.
Munich. I think it's a bit of both. I think he manages his career, or whoever manages his career, assistant managing his career, does a very good job of doing so. He went into Barcelona. He got the Barcelona job at the point in time when Barcelona had perhaps the best player in the world, along with some of the best midfielders in the world. In fact, arguably, Barcelona had one of the best teams of that decade, with the likes of Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, Puyol had transferred over. Puyol, sorry, PK. That team was an immense team. Not to mention the forwards. That team was an immense team, and Pep, being of Barcelona heritage, would have gotten the respect of all of these players, most of them having come through the Barcelona academy as well too. So most of them would have been familiar with him. And so, yes, I give him full credit for being a special type tactician, because in truth, Pep transformed how a lot of teams have played and play football, even currently. It is suitable to some countries and some tastes. It's not as suitable to other countries and other tastes. For example, when he went to Bayern Munich, it is a given that Bayern would win the Bundesliga, but he was unable to accomplish the winning of the Champions League. And that's something I think that's the one scratch I would think on his CV, in the sense that outside of that brilliant Barcelona team, he's been unable to win the Champions League. And I think that until he's done that, he for me, he still can go up. Well, no, I can't even say so, because if you're talking about men like Ferguson and them fellas and them win Champions League with one team too. Yeah. So you can't deny him his greatness. I just think it would seal him as one of the greatest of all time. And not just like you're suggesting that he's a beneficiary of good teams. In the case of City, though, kudos to their owners who invested in football. Because before Pep got there, they went and they brought over Tixi Bergiston and Soriano from Barcelona, their chief executive and director of sport at the point in time. And they allowed them to manage the football inside of things. So immediately that those guys have a particular concept of what they want, who they want, and the type of player profile that would fit into the system that they want. And City's owners were able to say, okay, listen, we don't really have much of a, history, footballing wise. So I have no issue in handing over these reins, and we can deal with the commercial side of things, and kudos to them.
They said, no, you said that. I think PSG is basically doing the same thing, whereby you only really hear of the owners for, when they bought Messi. So you hear of the owner, because, they spend this, well, they really didn't spend anyone, but, they bought over Messi. But then you have the guys who run the football is the ones who's making the calls.
Yeah.
Other than in our case, we ask, so you keep on hearing the owners. And it's like, dude, you guys are Americans, you don't understand English football. So, and a lot of the same thing with the guys who bought the what do call it, cut study or Kingdom something enterprise, the guys who bought over Newcastle is the same thing. I think that's what they're doing to is they are looking at executives who are football, who understand managing football, and you say, okay, you guys tell us what you want, we got the money, just tell us what you want, we'll make it happen. And
I don't know if I don't know if it was you I discussed this with on the program or if I discussed it on the program at all. It may have been in the chat, but American owners do not belong in English football.
yeah, we discussed that, and I totally agree. Totally agree.
Because you look at Leicester, you look at Chelsea, you look at City, Liverpool. I think they're the anomaly, but they're the anomaly because they employed English people to run the club and they sat back.
Yeah.
You know, but most other times you see American owners get involved in football, English football clubs without a history of a liking for football, just see it as an investment,
right,
then you're putting yourself in problems.
Yeah, because look at it. I think it was earlier this week. I just happened to be scrolling through Sky Sports News. I think it was, and Ryan Reynolds, he invested in, I don't know if it's a Champions League 1 or 2 team, and you know, but it was just to them, he and a partner of his, to them it was just like investing, you know, the movie stars like a couple $1 million, let's just invest some money. But that's how it works, and maybe that's why I kind of like how the Spanish system is set up and the German system, and I guess French and Italian is the same way, whereby you can't just, not because you have money, you can't just decide you want to buy and own a team. You know, the fans still have a lot of it. The people who's there. So these teams actually represent the city or the town in which they're in, you know. But look at it, but if you got to look at the NFL, the persons who own NFL team, like a lot of people own an NFL team, they are invested in it, not like, oh, that's exactly. These guys are invested, you know, like Jimmy Jones and these guys, like, he's like the face of Dallas Cowboys football, you know, because that is his vision, you know. So you don't see them getting involved in anything else. Like the guys, I think it was Man United. Yeah, Man United was trying to buy an IPL team.
IPL team, yeah.
So just to show you that these guys are just about, you know, we have some extra money, let's just throw some money over here.
Investment. They just see it as an investment. They realize that there are billions of rabid Indian fans who, I shouldn't say, that's not the word to use, in terms of they're very passionate about their cricket, you know, and they know that if they could get a little bite of that market, there's more money for them. So it's not necessarily about them caring anything about cricket.
No, it's not that. It's not that. And in a way, that's why, even though it would have been nice for them to get it, but that's why I'm kind of glad that they didn't get it. So so the other two owners who actually got involved were persons who are intricately involved in cricket. Like they grew up watching cricket. Some they might have played it a little bit or whatever the case is, but they're intricately involved in cricket. Because you cannot, it's almost like owning any business or anything like that. In order for you to truly understand and satisfy, no, okay, I'm doing this to make a profit. Like, okay, I'm owning a team for the team to win. Same thing, like own a business to make a profit. Then you fully understand that, hey, listen, we're not just gonna just throw money into something like this. Because when I look at the NFL team owner list, these guys own a team because they want to see the team win. Simple.
And the thing is that I think it's also done in such a way where if there's another person that wishes to buy a team, it has to have the approval of some majority in the NFL, that is. It has to have the approval of the majority of other team owners. And the NBA is similarly set up as well too. English, French, and it seems like Italian have a bit more of a liberal system in terms of team ownership, whilst the Spanish, like you said, especially with Barcelona and Real Madrid, and the German for sure, I know, fans own a large percentage.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a model that we should try looking for our semi-pro team, well, our teams here locally, and convert them into some sort of a semi-pro system in the sense that, and maybe something could be discussed later on in a better forum. But if it is that you have your community invested
Yeah.
and owning shares in a team, then they're expecting nothing else but the best out of those who go and perform on the field, because now you're not just representing me from a community perspective, you're representing me from a business perspective as well. I'm part owner of this thing. You know, the coach appointments, there's going to be more involvement from the community. There's going to be more, you know, so maybe it's something we could look at in terms of how we try.
But that is really a great idea, because remember many years here locally they've been speaking about, you know, semi, turning the league semi-pro. And they've been looking at it from like business standpoint, like, you know, can we get, you know, banks and, you know, big businesses involved. But then maybe if you look at it from a grassroots way, from the community, all these, every team basically is representing a village, Keon, you know, Newtown, St. Peter's. So they represent a village. So if you then do it like that, whereby you get ownership of the, as I said, the ownership of the community involved. So you see, it's 100 shares, 100% shares, 50% will become, no, 51%, something like that, or 50% even, you know? And then in the case of Rams Village, because Rams, you say, okay, well, Rams, you could only own maybe 25%, whatever, go to whatever, so then everybody gets involved. So everyone is involved, you know? So everything coming down to the hirings and everything, all that is managed by the shareholder, quote unquote, shareholders.
Holders, yeah, representatives of the shareholders. Agreed. You know, when you have team representatives and you like president and vice president and this kind of thing in the team of the club, this is taken a lot more seriously, because now is people's investment at stake here every season, and the investment need not be large, you know, a dollar per person.
Yeah.
You know, a dollar per person. I would need.
Yeah, because when I was reading about like Barcelona, that is how it started. It was something like that, like $1. Barcelona, so they have persons who pass on, their shareholdings in Barcelona from one family member to the next. But the original person might have just paid $1. Now the person's 10, maybe 22, 3 generations down the line, the share might now be worth a couple $1,000, but the original person owns $1. But technically, but you only still own maybe just one share. But it doesn't mean anything because you're still a part owner of the club. You know, so that
and never, and knowing how these families and they are, you never really cash in on your shareholdings.
No,
you remain a shareholder, and then you pass that on to your family thereafter. You know, so it is not a case where you're not getting. You run into fear, let's say, of everybody trying to cash in on the shares in order to make a quick buck, because they realize the value go up, you know? It's an investment into your community where you yourself are being recognized for your contributions, you know?
By even building a stadium, and then that's the next thing, even building a stadium in the city still have to go through so many different things, because you have to be like, got the permission and this and that, and you have to have town hall meetings where you meet with the people to discuss, okay, you're gonna do this and that. So it becomes really a community investment. You know, a community investment where, and I think something like that here, especially in our small island, it would benefit. It would benefit the clubs. It would benefit the clubs.
Yeah. Something to think about. Maybe it's a proposal we can sit down and try and make at some point in time. One we can think about it, try to come up with on your own. Just to round off the weekend's results, Leeds Leicester 1-1, Everton Spurs 0-0, 2 draws. Your Arsenal got a brilliant result today, 1-0 versus Watford, keeps them on the trot, you know. Now they've leapfrogged the Ole United and challenging for top 6 positions now. You never know how this run is going to continue. Yes, let's get on now to some regional news. I know it's not something we want to speak about, well, but it has to be spoken about.
Yeah, I would speak about something more positively then. In regional news, the West Indies women cricket team is presently in Pakistan, ready to take out Pakistan in free 2020 internationals. First one is tomorrow, 1 a.m. our time.
Well, hopefully they can bring some good news with them, boy. No, these West Indies.
Some sort of joy. Because I honestly, okay, I was thinking, okay, we leave, we're going to represent, we haven't played in a while, we are going to at least make it to the semis. That was it for me. We're gonna at least make it to the semis. You know, because we had a pretty decent team. And I'm not gonna lie, even after we spoke after the first two warm-up matches, and we were like, you did make a valid point where you said, so what if what we see in the warm-up matches carry on into the group matches? That's exactly what happened. I can't even lie. That's exactly what happened. The performances in the warm-up matches carried on to because I was like, okay, it's warm-up matches, we're dropping catches, we're misfeeling, we're not running properly between the wickets, our opening is not looking, but I was just like, man, it's warm-up matches, we just traveled across the Atlantic, even though we really didn't have any practice sessions and stuff like that, but it literally just carried on throughout the entire tournament for us, and we were poor. I mean, I don't think there's another word to use. I tried to be as positive as possible. We woke up early to see the matches, but we were just poor.
I wonder. I've always given leeway to this particular cricket administration, because the last one was not the one that I tended to agree with, and I'd actually signed off of West Indies cricket due to the previous administration.
Remember that well.
But if I'm going to be fair, if I'm going to be a fair observer, fan, analyst, this debacle for the reigning champs of the T20 needs to be seriously investigated, and somebody needs to give some serious answers.
Wow.
Because we went there with a very good team in 2016, it was. A good team, but we were not, well, we had not done a lot of practice matches. There was a lot of problems with the board, and I don't remember the back and forth between some players and the board, or the president at that point in time. But we had enough within us to be able to represent sufficiently so that we got to the final. And then in the final, it was heroics that carried us over the line. Because in truth and in fact, anticipating that somebody would have hit 4 straight sixes in a final over against a good death bowler would have been something that nobody would have been able to predict.
Nobody.
But we pulled the cat out the bag, and we pulled our best trick for last. Kudos to Carlos and the West Indies, 2016 in the bag. Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This time around, we literally had no excuse for not going in there with our best 11 and prepared. I understand even the CPL commitments, but the majority of the team did not have, not CPL, IPL commitments,
Yeah,
but the
IPL.
majority of the team did not have IPL commitments sometimes. And even if there were players who had IPL commitments, the preparation on the whole was just not good enough. Mind you, it affected not only us, it affected India as well. I don't know if you realize.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
India looked short of form, short of chemistry, short of focus, and the teams that are actually looking on point, Pakistan, as per usual, England look really, really sharp. Well, they're now semi-finalists, four World Cups in a row, and it's Australia on the. So I just think that we went into this with a level of confidence that reflected Chris Gale's cocksure response to Curtly Ambrose, but our performances were just as bad as his has been to back up comments that you would have been making. And I am wondering, why is there not a greater outcry? Is it as well like with Manchester United? We have gotten so accustomed to us not competing that the two T20 wins in the past were merely anomalies, and this year what we saw over the last 3-4 weeks is more West Indian, or more of what we expect from West Indies cricket. Is it that we are more comfortable now with this CWI board and its setup and its potential directions and some of the things that they're doing, and therefore we are giving them a bit more leeway in terms of what they're trying to do? What is your opinion in terms of the quality of the gameplay as well as the response from the region?
Yeah, okay. Well, let's go to the quality of the gameplay. It could be, as I said there lastly, that maybe we gotta let we just have a new, well, Kenny West a new president. We got it 2 years now already. And
this is his second term, so this is his fourth year.
Yeah, so second term. What I think though, which I'm gathering, is that a lot of persons don't take T20 as serious cricket still. They still call it liquid cricket. So us losing a T20 tournament in the early, well, middle stages, I guess persons seeing it like, okay, well, whatever. But I'm still seeing it like, listen, West Indies last, it shouldn't happen. Because you're supposed to, it doesn't really matter. You go in there to represent, you're going there to do one thing, and it's just win. It's not simple. We're going there to do one thing, it's win, so it shouldn't be any excuses. There shouldn't be any excuses. But the performance, as I say, it possibly, and ironically, I read it, I saw it this morning, somebody posted the exact same thing, when India got knocked out, because New Zealand won and India got knocked out with Afghanistan, they said the same thing. Look at it. The IPL has now killed another team. Yeah. Because the IPL being what? A couple of days, possibly?
2 weeks.
Yeah.
A few days before.
Yeah, a few days before the official start, because they were having group matches before. But a few days before the official start of the World T20, you had IPL matches happening, and I think, well, for hours, as the chairman of Selector pointed out in a few of his comments, whereby he was okay with us having players over there because they'll be playing in the same environment in which the T20 tournament will be happening. But it just didn't pan out like that. We thought that it would have been easier because we would have been more we would have been accustomed to the field and everything like that, but nothing played out. We were still hitting balls, 6 in the air with a big field, pushing but not running singles. So it was almost very much like as I say, West Indies of old. It just seemed that way. We played that way, you know. Um, how Kilian Pollard, sorry, he said something that I don't know if persons really understood, like took it like that. I think persons just make it seem like, okay, he just said it because he was mad. But he really wasn't, he said something almost alluding to he wasn't happy because he himself, right, when Gail said what he said about Ambrose, well, other than what Nicholas Bowen said, but he himself was one who stood up for Gail, you know? And then he actually ended up saying something yesterday which sounded like, he had a lot of faith in his experienced players, but they didn't stand up. But he himself didn't stand up. He himself didn't come to the fore. He just made ones in the game yesterday, but he himself didn't really do anything prior to that. And a little bit of ones in the Pakistan game too. But he himself didn't do anything. Right? So when you look at it, it's like our players, our experienced players, let's put it like that, because they made sure that they play basically the same team from game one all the way through. And our experienced players didn't show up and we lost based on their backs. So now questions will be asked, and questions that have already been asked as to one, why we took those players. Two, what is the way forward now? Because within a year, literally next year, November, will be the next World Cup. So, and in Australia, which we're more favorable with because, those bouncy wickets tend to like them. But it's like, what will be the move? How will we be able to nurture players going forward? And it's very strange that it wasn't until maybe the second game, because we played, the first game was England, the second game was it Pakistan?
South Africa.
Yeah. South Africa, sorry. And it wasn't until the second game I actually heard, what his name is, Farmer, Bishop, actually started questioning the team makeup. He have done it, behind closed doors, but he actually questioned the team makeup because he was like, what are we going to do? And then more and more as the tournament went on, and we were losing or we weren't doing well, or even the game that we won, it was still the same thing. What are we doing? How are we going to move on? Because I guess by then everybody realizes it's almost impossible for West Indies to qualify now to go any further. So what are we going to do? And how are we going to move on from this? Do we get rid of Pollard? At least when the Dwayne Bravo has retired officially from international cricket, so you don't have to call him to pick him.
The champion and the universe boss gone.
I don't know. Because remember, the universe boss said something which he almost always does to almost make himself get picked, was that he would like to retire. He would like to have a retirement game in Jamaica.
That's fine. I don't have a problem giving you that, but I don't believe that you have justified. You see, I think he put himself and the team at a disadvantage with his pre-World Cup comments with Courtney, because what you did is that you've divided your fan base going into the World Cup, as opposed to before when everybody was behind Ollie and against Cameron, and most people against Cameron, and everybody behind the team. And Sammy himself was a much more focused and strong leader. He maintained and demanded high standards of everybody every game, including of himself. I just think this time, like you said, maybe they don't take T20 as seriously, but I don't tend to believe that. I tend to believe that they are taking T20 cricket seriously. And I also tend to think that they're trying to develop that alongside the other games. What I agree with, though, is that there was a serious miscalculation in saying that because those guys were down there in those regions, that they would have been better prepared to deal with what was to come for the World Cup. What they should have been is down there and practicing together as a team. But you're talking about running from CPL straight to IPL because some of those players flew out the day of the final
Yeah. Yep.
to go straight into the IPL.
Yep.
Bravo
Because
himself would have
left the-
made it to the 2 finals.
Yep. So
Right?
he left the day after Owen, Bravo was on a flight heading to IPL. Gale as well. All these guys were left. Pollard left the day off of the final
Yes.
to go to the IPL.
Yes.
So a lot of these guys were just on the plane, bam, final.
Straight
So
to IPL, right? Now, and bear with me, you're talking about a 30-something-year-old, 40-something-year-old man, and you're moving from one intense competition straight into another. You are involved in most, if not all, the games, barring injury. This Bravo referring to, and you make it and win both finals. And within 2 weeks, you again going and play in a World Cup.
Yep.
That to me is a bit of a miscalculation because only a real Superman would be able to deal with that type. Russell has been struggling with injury throughout the entire IPL. In fact, even the CPL.
Yep.
Right?
And
Hetmyer had been.
He didn't play him. He didn't play, you know.
Yeah.
They chose not to play him in the final of the IPL. They chose not to play him. His coach chose not to play him because he said he didn't want to risk it.
Yeah. It's too much. It's too much on them. It's too much on the. And I think this one smacks of poor planning. Overall, I just think this one smacks of poor planning. I think there was an arrogance that we went in knowing that we had the best T20 players in the world in our arsenal, the most experienced, and we assumed that based on those experienced players, we would be able to pull ourselves out of any situation. And they really and truly could only muster enough to beat Afghanistan and who else? Scotland, not Scotland.
That was it.
Who else we beat?
That was it. Afghanistan.
Zambia. No man, it's just 4 points West Indies got, man.
Yeah, for 2-2.
4
we beat
points.
Afghanistan because we lost to Australia.
Oh no, you're right. We only beat Bangladesh. Sorry, we only beat Bangladesh.
Yep, that was the
We
only
look
one.
a shame in truth now, Gavin boy.
Yeah,
5 games we played.
Afghanistan was in the next group, yeah. The Afghanistan game was one of our warm-up matches.
Yeah. And we lost that too.
Yeah.
So literally, in wherever the matches are being played, West Indies record at this point, including warm-up games, is matches 7, win 1, lose 6.
When you say it like that, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's Zambia type results there.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is. We wish the semi-finalists all the best. England will be coming up against New Zealand, Australia coming up against Pakistan. I'm going to support Pakistan. I consider them the West Indies of Asia.
Me too. And the reason why I'm really supporting Pakistan too is what New Zealand did to them by pulling out. Like you literally is already there for a thing and then you pull out. And then what England did to them after New Zealand pulled out of the thing, England pulled out without any reason, and then you heard all kind of behind the hand dealings of how persons now are retiring from their jobs and all this kind of craziness. But yes, I do support Pakistan. The only thing that though is that in all honesty, I would have really wished if they had lost one of their group games, anyone, because they were already going to qualify.
You know them fellas and them playing right now, Gary, don't let them lose nothing. Don't let them lose
well, they can't lose. They can't lose now, you know.
Yeah. Don't let them lose nothing. Right now, let them continue to play as they are playing. They've found the formula, at least where they are right now. So let Australia try and catch up. You know what I mean? I suspect it will be a New Zealand, Pakistan final.
I believe so.
because England always huff and puff until the real pressure come on them, and New Zealand have enough discipline to keep them under pressure for the full 20 overs. So I am predicting a New Zealand, but best of
and I don't think that
wishes to
Australia
both teams.
has what it takes. Even looking at Australia play yesterday, and there was someone was saying, well, actually, what Bishop was saying that he feels like, I think he was saying, he feels like they're actually getting better, but not to me. I just think that they're gonna run out of gas, just like how India did, and Pakistan is gonna beat them because right now Pakistan is basically the one of the most rested team because they didn't play any IPL.
Yep.
They only had 1 or 2 players in the CPL, which they brought home early because they were going to have the series versus New Zealand. So really and truly, they probably won the most rested team, and they just seem to be getting better. I mean, they have been in positions where they have been 3 down early on, still win. Been position where they chase down 150 runs, not lose without losing a wicket. So I mean, they have been in almost every single bat first, win the toss, bowl first, whichever matter. It seems like it doesn't matter to them. They just perform. They just perform. So I think they're really gonna possibly win this thing.
I'm hoping they do. I really am hoping they do. I didn't even remember the inconveniences of the cancelled series, but I'm hoping they do. 2 minutes before we go, I wanted to mention that I've been trying really hard to get into contact with somebody from our local SKNFA, President Harris or Jensek McLean, or anyone to give us an update as to what is happening in local football. We are seeing 1 or 2 memos being sent out, but overall, there's been little or no discussion since the election about plans, what the intentions are, what we are doing, where we are going, how we are looking to improve our rankings, any changes that are going to be made. And a lot of information is being passed along grapevines. But I think in terms of overall communication, I think we need to get some more answers, and hopefully we can continue to try and see if we can reach out to somebody, and
it would be nice because they sent out something to the league. They were looking at starting the league. So I'm trying to figure, okay, is it that you didn't probably meet the criteria set out by the task force, or the task force, quote unquote, change the goalposts or whatever? So it would be interesting to know exactly what.
Give us some communication. That's all we ask for. So we can appeal again to necessary powers that be, and also respect as well. Last respects to Mr. Johnson. We had a pretty good showing at his funeral. So with that being said, we want to wish everyone a pleasant afternoon. Thanks a lot for being here with me. Gawina, see if you're faithful to your West Indies shirt. I've removed my Manchester United background as well as changed my. No more support until Ole gone. But I want to say thanks again. Ole out street. You never know if I might wear a shirt with that or not. Thanks to the listeners, viewers who have been with us, whether on social media or on the radio. It's been enjoyable having you here with us, and we want to sign out for another exciting episode of Bench Meeting.
Take care.